Hello and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. And yeah, this is your pretty much your second episode of like the Premier League preview sort of show. I'm gonna try and get guests on there as much as possible. This show will now be weekly as there's no international break. So weekly up until the next international break in March. Obviously, thank God there's no international break. We can watch club football. Unless you're a West Ham fan like me, then you're kind of dreading it a little bit. But anyway, make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. We're trying to hit 1K as soon as possible. People at GW12 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok if you want to follow me. And also at 4 p.m. tomorrow, we'll be live with Strasbourg Steve to preview the Newcastle West Ham United game. So join us live at 4 p.m. Now, obviously, if there's any news after this that I've missed, I'm recording this for context at 1:17 in the Thursday afternoon, as I have time today. So you'll see this in the evening. You'll see this in the evening. I'm recording on the same day. But obviously, we'll get into the main fixtures first. The main fixture of the weekend is Manchester City versus Tottenham. Now, we all know what happened before the international break. Tottenham lost to Ipswich, gave them their first Premier League win since 2002. And Manchester City have lost four in a row. Everyone, we've talked about it a million times about how they've lost four in a row and how they can bounce back, etc. For me, it's very possible that they lose five in a row. You'd like to think it isn't just because it's Man City, but just because of their record against Tottenham. Like, I think both teams will just cancel each other out, to be 100% honest with you. Obviously, the whole Bentancur thing has happened as well, 7-game ban. I think Pepper signed a new deal, allegedly. Obviously, Man City are denying any sort of reports about it happening straight away. But I'm pretty sure there was other news as well. I could be wrong. But I think there was other news with like De Bruyne maybe staying as well. I saw something about that. They're just getting all the boost they can just before it comes to a point where they have everyone on their side pretty much. I'm just trying to look for the I'm trying to look for the news. I am trying to look for the news. But there it is. Kevin De Bruyne, John Stones, and Jack Grealish and Manuel Akanji are all back in training. That was the news. So obviously Grealish has barely played anyway. John Stones is very injury prone, but very needed towards his Manchester City side as they already have defensive problems. Manuel Akanji is probably the best out and out defender in terms of just defensive ability, what defender should be doing. And obviously Kevin De Bruyne's Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne didn't really come on to make an impact against against Brighton. However, without De Bruyne, Haaland looks a shell of himself. It's like he's the only one that really has that almost telepathic relationship with Haaland where he knows exactly where he wants it all the time. Pause with the whole fact with the timing of Haaland's runs and the timing of Kevin De Bruyne's passes. All comes down to perfection, really. However, with Tottenham on the other side, they lost against Galatasaray. Then they beat I can't remember who they beat. They beat someone else, I think, and then they lost to Ipswich. Well, it might have been in the same week, but their recent record has been a bit spooky. And just feeling it. He's another one that's maybe feeling the pressure, maybe getting sacked, but it's the typical 2-year cycle, as I've said on many shows when it comes to Tottenham. You hype up the last minute, and this has happened since Pochettino, overhype the manager as a fan base, back them in their first season, back them, you know what I mean? Give them somewhat what they want. Then they go on a run, a streak, a new manager bounce streak, get talked about as outside of the title contenders, fall off and get figured out tactically. Then pressure comes down to the manager and divides the fan base because of the style of play. It's happened with every manager. It's happened with Mourinho, it's happened with Conte, and it's happened with Ange, all in the first full seasons. With Mourinho, it was a bit different with the whole lockdown season, but when they started in the season where they actually finished 7th and Mourinho got sacked, Mourinho was in a title charge. It was like first for a little bit. They're always first around Christmas for whatever reason. And it probably happens with their next manager as well. Now, probably the bigger issue here is Daniel Levy upstairs, but doesn't mean you can't judge the manager. It's the same thing with Manchester United. Obviously, the board were the bigger problem when it came to mainly down to the Glazers, and we'll see what Ineos can do. They've hired Amorim'S, so that's a good start, but they also kept Ten Hag originally. With Tottenham don't really care about football. as in the board. The Tottenham board don't care about football. The Tottenham board care about, listen, I'm not even taking the piss when I say the go-kart and the concerts and stuff. They care about the more commercialization of the club, because Levy has taken pride in the whole self-sustainable shit, where he can pretty much make the money back instantly, and he's making even more money than he's actually spending by a long shot right now. He ain't really invested like that. So with Ange, he has put his heart on his sleeve and said he approves the players. Now I don't think everything is to do with Ange, but this like this with every manager. Every manager stubborn in their own way to do with their style of play, their tactics, etc. When you get figured out, this is kind of what happens. This is kind of what happens with uh, managers that are this stubborn. Like no one's asking for, well, not no one, but you probably shouldn't have a direct plan B, but you should have the ability to use your man management skills to actually tweak everything. Not everything, but tweak little things. Like, if you think you can play attacking football, but with attackers like Werner and Brennan Johnson, listen, Brennan Johnson scored goals now and then, but he's not the player you want to, be winning trophies in your second season, to quote yourself, and be challenging for leagues or whatever. Because I'm assuming Ange's main goal would like to be to challenge for a league with Tottenham, as he's won so much with Celtic. He wants to, I'm assuming he wants to translate that into a different league. But also, whenever Tottenham come up against a somewhat organised defence, they have no idea what to do. They have no idea what to do with their attacks. It becomes very one-dimensional. When you just sit back against them and they just have the ball and they just pass it around, etc., this is what happens. This is what happens. They just falter, and they've always been capable of defensive mistakes. Romero has not been on it at all this season. I'm pretty sure he's injured as well. I think Dragusin might be injured as well. I'm not too sure, though. He might have played against Ipswich. But even if it is, I think Dragusin had a poor performance against Ipswich anyway, from what people have said. Van de Ven is a great defender, but he can be got. Destiny Doggy, not been as great as this season, I have to say. Not been as great as, and even with Pedro Porro on the other side either. Pedro Porro is another one that just spams shots whenever he's in that edge of the box inverted role. He just loves to spam shots, and half of them don't even go in. In fact, most of them don't. He scored one against Burnley last year in FA Cup, and that was it. Most of those shots don't even go in. It feels like a lot of it is sideways. A lot of it is like taking too long with the ball. Too many touches. Players hiding. Unbalanced midfield basically all season anyway. Some of that does come down to team selection as well. So to call this game, I think both teams will just cancel each other out, to be 100% honest with you. Tottenham always turn up against Manchester City because they feel like it's actually a ground where they can turn up in because of their record there. And they've had this record for quite a while now. And it's not even just defensive managers, someone that can, hit Pep on the counter. It just, whenever Tottenham transition in space, Tottenham actually have got quite a good counter-attacking team. That's why under Conte, in moments, they were decent, especially with that Kulusevski, Kane, Son front three. But it came down to a point where Tottenham were just sitting too deep in pretty much every game. But with Ange Postecoglou, he knows he's not going to have the ball as much, but they're quite good at offside trapping with their high line. So I think City will get caught out sometimes in any offside trap. They did this with Davies and Romero in centre back, so it kind of doesn't really matter at this point. We've seen before, even with a slightly injured Tottenham side, they can still get a point at Manchester City, especially with a Man City that's not great right now and that needs to turn up. Yes, people could be like, this is only going to motivate Manchester City even more. And I do agree. That is going to happen eventually when they come and bounce back and stuff like that. But I don't think it'll be in this game. I think it'll be a draw, personally. But let's move on to the next game that is... I can't lie. When I was looking at the fixtures are genuinely terrible. These are terrible fixtures. But we're going to talk about the 4:30 kickoff because Ruben Amorim, this is his first game. He's travelling to Ipswich Town against Kieran McKenna's Ipswich Town, a team that just, as I said, we just talked about with Tottenham. They just beat Tottenham, and they got their first win since 2002, before I was born. And that should give them confidence. Maybe it's kind of the worst timing to get your first win because it's after the international break. You can't carry on that same momentum. However, they should still be taking confidence going into Manchester United because this is their first game. You can look at it both ways. You can look at it as Man United will be having that manager bounce back where It's new ideas and new tactics and new voices, etc. But you can look at it from an Ipswich point of view. This is their first game. Catch them out early before they get better under the new manager. Now, we don't know what the Man United under Amorim's going to look like, really. We don't know what the first starting 11 is going to look like. I have seen a lot of Garnacho at left wing back hypothetical lineups. I don't know why people think, like, even if Garnacho does start at left wing back, a Garnacho Rashford left side is not dangerous to anyone. A Garnacho starting isn't dangerous to anyone. When he's coming off the bench and everyone's tired, that's when he's his best, you know? Like, I'm pretty sure he came off the bench to score that goal against Leicester. Like, he just has that confidence to prove people wrong when he's coming off the bench, rather than when he's starting, he gets caught out very easily by any fullback that's competent in defence. Very one-dimensional winger. Same with Marcus Rashford, even though I think Marcus Rashford has actually more tricks up his sleeve. Just a complete moments player. If Man United want to succeed under Amorim, they got to rehaul their squad. They got to overhaul their squad. Forget the transfers they've just got in. Keep them for now and see what they could do with them. But I'd say Kobbie Mainoo deserves to keep his place. Diogo Dalot deserves to keep his place. Amad Diallo deserves to keep his place. In terms of like in the Manchester United squad. But so I'm talking them three specifically. And this is barring the new signings that are just signed. Apart from that, they probably need to upgrade on nearly every other position because even Dalot is not the most consistent player, but because he's playing in a 3-back system, probably under Amorim, it will give him a bit more of a confidence to thrive, you know? He can be caught out, though. He can be got at, but so can every player. He's got good attributes, though. If he just works on his crossing a lot more, we don't have play him inverted, and you just play him hugging a touchline, etc., whipping in crosses, you might actually get somewhere. Mazarari is a good player. Agate played under Amorim at Sporting. I don't break the signing, but it is what it is. Like, I don't think their attack is great at all. That's why I predicted them to finish 8th at the start of the season. I don't think their centre-backs are good at defending in wide areas. We'll see how Lenny Yoro does. I think Mazarari is a very good player. But that's kind of the main thing for Man United, and that's just talking about the future and maybe the distant present, whatever. But we're not the distant present, you know what I mean? Like the near future and then the distant future, you know? Not distant present. I did a Saeed there. But with Kieran McKenna's Ipswich, for example, they have got players that can hurt Man United. They've got Amari Hutchinson, who's really come into his own into playing in the Premier League. You got Leif Davis, who's just signed a new contract, and especially going forward, it's a very talented player. Very talented player. Should be England's future left back, if we're being 100% honest, because it should be Leif Davis and Lewis Hall, because Chilwell and Shaw in 2024 and 2025 stinks. Just that's a trick that England are going to miss just because Leif Davis isn't a big name and he doesn't play for a big six club. What's it? Also, Jacob Greaves stepping in defence. We'll see how he carries on, stepping into the Premier League and stuff. It's going to be interesting to see if Ben Johnson does actually keep his place because he does stink. Just saying that as a West Ham fan, I've always thought he stinks. Calvin Phillips is back from suspension as well. They just won the game without Calvin Phillips, so it's going to be interesting to see if he comes back in straight in. I don't think he should because I don't think he's been good at all, but we move. They have got players that can hurt you though. Like Ogbede's injured, yes, but Wes Burns isn't like the worst like to come in. Like they've got George Hurst that can either come in or Liam Delap up front. Players can step up that come from the Championship that want to prove themselves, and because they're playing at home, they'll play above their level. Jack Clark is dangerous. Schmodix is dangerous. These are kind of goal-scoring threats in a way. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ipswich get along in this game. I do think Man United will get over the line just a whole new manager bounce. I do think it will be tough, though. I do think it'll be tough. I think Man United will just about edge it and get over the line. The next kind of best game out of these is probably Newcastle West Ham. But if you want to see me talk about that game in detail, then check out tomorrow's preview. Arsenal Nottingham Forest is probably the next one, and that's at 3:00. That's not even live. But obviously, Nottingham Forest did lose their last game against Newcastle. They lost them 3-1, I think. And Arsenal drew at Chelsea after just missing out at the last minute. They had a chance right at the last minute. I don't know if it was offside or not. I don't particularly care. But that's a game that maybe you think that they should have won, just in the context of that they should win, for example, because they had lost to Bournemouth. So if you lose to Bournemouth, you lose to Newcastle, you got to win the games against Chelsea. You drew at Man City. You're dropping a lot of points for a team that's trying to compete for the league. That's why I think they're out of it. I think they're worse than last season. I don't think it's going to be another last season where they can just go on a run and whatever. Listen, Erdogan's back, but so what? So what? I think it's more than just Erdogan. You relied on Erdogan and Saka way too much. That right hand side, because let's talk about that left hand side for just a sec. Trossard's injured. We don't know if he's going to be back. I'm assuming it's just a precaution, and he'll probably be back, if not this week, then next week, just like Saka was when it came after the last international break, when he came back against Bournemouth, etc. But also with Martinelli. Martinelli's been terrible this season. He scored against Chelsea, but doesn't mean he played well in that game. He didn't. Mikel Merino, when he came in, I know some people said he played well. I didn't see that. Every time he got the ball, he gave the ball to a Chelsea player. Declan Rice hasn't been at his best. Thomas Partey has. It's Thomas Partey, isn't it? You can't play 40-year-olds on the left side. Gabriel and Saliba, it's a very good centre-back partnership. Can they just keep the momentum of what they were doing mainly for the start of the season? Probably. Doesn't mean they can't be got at. But this Arsenal squad seems unbalanced. This Arsenal squad seems underused almost, in a sense. Arteta's terrible with his man management. They don't have goals in them. Kai Havertz is back to being just a normal Kai Havertz that he usually is. So it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back against Forest. I think they will win this game, just because even though Forest do keep it tight, they did lose against Newcastle, and maybe it was just maybe this is the start of maybe they'll go on a bit of a losing streak, and maybe people will die down the hype a bit. And it doesn't mean that they're not good and they're not hard to beat, but at times they can be got at. Arsenal are one-dimensional when it comes to attacking, though. So if Forest do keep it organised to a certain extent, Arsenal are another team that struggle with low blocks and organised defences just in general. So Nuno could do a job on Arteta, don't get me wrong. Murillo and Milinkovic have been decent all season. Alex Moreno and Ola Aina at fullback as well. And the one thing I've said is if Forest catch Arsenal with the counter, it could be long for them, just because Arsenal have been getting worse in defending teams when they hit them on a transition. Just my opinion. I think the lack of mobility in midfield, if Rice isn't there, no one's stopping that counter-attack. Rice is very good at stopping that counter-attacks, but I've even seen him get caught out a lot more when teams are countering. So Hudson-Odoi, whoever it is, Elliot Anderson, Anthony Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White, I don't know who's fit for them, but if it's any of them on the counter, then it could be like even Jota Silva. Like, you've got players that can affect Chris Wood holding the ball up. Chris Wood's been great all season. He's going to be a threat. It's going to be interesting to see that battle against Gabriel and Saliba as well. Obviously, people could say international break, people coming from different continents, but every team suffers with that now. Like, every team's got internationals. So I think Arsenal will just edge and get over the line. I don't think they're in a title race, though. I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think they're in a top 4 race either, though. I just think they'll be comfortably third. When we see it at the end of the season, I think they're going to be too far under Liverpool and Manchester City to catch up with them. But I think they're going to be too far above the other teams because the other teams in the league don't have enough quality to keep up with them. Now, you could argue Chelsea basically have one game a week because they use a different team for the Conference League and stuff like that. But still, I think Chelsea will be in the top 4 race. I don't think they'll be near Arsenal by the end of the season. Doesn't mean I think Arsenal are good enough to win the title either, though, because their transfer window was horrid. Horrid if you want to win the league. And Raheem Sterling, that is basically a 5th choice winger now under Gabriel Jesus, which doesn't really get talked about enough. And Raheem Sterling did all that video. Oh, you're going to see the best of me. No. We're going to see you on the bench. But yeah, I think Arsenal were edged out. Quickly, just briefly talking about the other games. Leicester City, Chelsea's the early kickoff. Fatawu has just got an ACL injury, and Reece James is out as well. So 2 key players for each, a key player each for each team, but more so for Leicester because Fatawu it's been ruled up to the end of the season, which is sad because he was one of the best players in the Championship last season. He should have been started for most of the time that Leicester played this season. So to see him out now is very sad. And Leicester are going to have to bounce back and find another way of playing without him. Maybe Buonanotte on the right and maybe someone else in the 10. I don't even know if they have another number 10. It'll probably be Jordan Ayew and Steffi Mavididi on the wings. And Jordan Ayew has been more effective from the bench from what I've heard. And obviously, Daka and Vardy are injured. We actually talked about the injury crisis on the manager video yesterday, talking about Steve Cooper specifically. Steve Cooper, again, as I mentioned yesterday, was under a lot of pressure, and apparently they were talking to managers in international break, and they stuck with Steve Cooper. Leicester kind of need to get out of this rut, but they're coming up against the Chelsea side who don't really need to take it to heart that they drew with Arsenal at home, even though that's a game that they probably want to win, obviously. I don't think they were their best at that game. I think Pedro Neto was really good, Caicedo was really good, and Cucurella was really good. But other players needed to step up, in my opinion. Lavia was good as well. I like Lavia. I think Caicedo and Lavia is the midfield they should go with permanently, and then bring Enzo Fernandez off the bench. Despite being a 100 million man, Enzo Fernandez isn't probably showing the level that he should be. Nicholas Jackson is doing okay. The past few games, he's been really good more to the start of the season, but he's still the guy for the short term. For the long term, I don't know. It's as their main number 9. That's kind of why we always see Chelsea linked with strikers all the time. But I do think Nicholas Jackson's a great footballer. Cole Palmer, he probably wants to bounce back after the past couple performances against Arsenal and Man United as well. Don't think he was at his best. I don't think he was terrible, but I don't think he was at his best either. What I don't like from Maresca, just saying as this as a neutral, playing the 2 number 10s, but you're playing Cole Palmer as the left number 10 is kind of like, you're kind of not really getting the best out of his game. When he's at the right angle from like the number 10 on the right hand side sort of thing, bouncing in between those 2 positions, then you really get the best out of him. But then again, Reece James is injured, so now you can't really play Gusto in the back 3. You're going to play Gusto more as a 10 and Palmer as a 10. So that's probably what we're going to see, going forward. And Neto and Madueke on the wings. Sancho's back in training. I don't know what's going on with Jadon Sancho, but we move. But the whole Madueke, a Jackson, Neto front 3 could falter, but they have enough to destroy that Leicester defence, like Wout Faes and Yannick Vestergaard. But no attack should be taking that defence seriously. You need to be peppering shots. Hermansen's a very good goalkeeper, so there's only so many times where he can keep them in games. But yeah, we move. I think that's going to be a Chelsea win. Fulham Wolves. Wolves won their first game under Gary O'Neill, keeping him in the job, kind of delaying his inevitable sacking. They go away to Fulham, a team that have done really good this season, beating Palace and Brentford back to back after that tremendous comeback against Brentford, and then beating Palace away from home as well. So Fulham are doing really good. I do think Fulham will win this game as well, just because Wolves ain't great at all, man. They can't defend. They make mistakes from the back. They're kind of relying on Mateus Cunha a bit too much as well. And Fulham just always find a way to win, and they don't give up. And Marco Silva's game management is way better than Gary O'Neill's game management. So I'm going to say Fulham win. Everton-Brentford's probably going to be the most boring game of the season, just because even though Brentford play good football, Everton-Brentford just seems to be one of them cagey matches, especially at Goodison Park. I predict a draw for that. I can't lie. I don't think there's really much to talk about when it comes to that. I think Everton will keep it tight, but they just won't finish their chances. They don't actually concede that many goals, I don't think. But they also don't score many, so that's kind of why they are where they are. Bournemouth-Brighton, that could go either way. Brighton, but coming off that win against Manchester City before the international break as well. But Bournemouth having a really good season. I think they actually lost. Yeah, they lost their last game. It was actually against Brentford, but they beat Man City, beat Arsenal, drew to Aston Villa. Like, this will be a tough game. But these are kind of 2 teams that are challenging almost the establishment in the Premier League by recruiting very well with their managers and players. And credit to both teams. I think it'll be a draw. I think that'll be a draw. Aston Villa, Crystal Palace. That you'd like to think that would be a good game, but Crystal Palace have been shocking this season. Aston Villa haven't won a game in a while either. Crystal Palace did beat Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup in this exact fixture at Villa Park. However, they had Wharton and Eze for a small period of time, and they both got injured. Palace kind of Glasgow mismanaging its players, and players faltering to injuries. Kind of don't really have many options. I think that will be a draw as well. I think Aston Villa don't really. They'll be fine, but it's just a case of, can they handle the whole fixture schedule going on, as this is their first season doing Champions League football in a while. Southampton-Liverpool will be the last game we talk about. That should be a Liverpool win. Southampton are genuinely dreadful. They gave Wolves their first win. They beat Everton, but that was a 1-0, and also their defence is just terrible as well. Jan Bednarek, the guy who mainly starts for them anyway, who is dog shit, is also injured as well. Liverpool are at the top of the league. It's 20th versus first. You'd like to think Liverpool get over the line with that. I know it's international break. I know sometimes the Premier League doesn't work like that, but that kind of doesn't matter. In this sense, I don't think Southampton are getting anything against Liverpool. But anyway, make sure to leave a like on the video. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Check out the 4 p.m. match preview on Friday tomorrow for Newcastle versus West Ham United. Make sure to follow all the social medias at GW12 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're on the road to 1K subscribers on YouTube. I'll see you guys later. Good.